happy to be here. And what I want to start this speech off with is water is essential for our survival as human beings. The same goes for creativity. For companies' survival, they need creativity and innovation. Researchers say that it is essential to create and innovate for competitive advantage and continued existence. One morning, as I was drinking my gallon jug of water, I began to think about water and the many purposes it has in my life. For example, I use it to wash myself, my home, my clothes, my dishes, and my teeth. As for water, it has multiple uses, so does creativity. You can solve problems from different angles, such as creating a new dish for dinner, discover a new way of communicating for increased success. You can create a new product. You can create a new painting. Discover your purpose in life and so forth. Like water, creativity has an ebb and flow phase. When in its ebb phase is the time where I must release old artwork, old ideas, beliefs, in order to receive the incoming tide of new ideas, magnetize new opportunities, as well as adopt new beliefs to stay congruent with the flow. One of my current art projects that speaks to the ebb and flow phase is my partnership with a mental and behavioral health organization. I help students in their after-school programs develop their emotional intelligence using wireless cell phones, some of you saw in the back, music, and the visual art activities. I find that regardless of grade level, there's an ebb and flow in how I'm able to connect with the students. By the time they enter my class, they're usually hyper, energetic, and at times disruptive. However, as soon as I place the headphones on their heads with the sound of Tibetan Om chanting, instantaneously the waves of hyperactivity transforms into calm tides landing on the shores. Once they have entered into the flow phase, it is at that point where we are able to connect and I am able to impart information to help mold them to well-rounded human beings. The great thing about water and creativity is that each human being possesses it. Our body is mainly made up of water. And researchers have found that we are all creative. How much water our body has depends on our water consumption. And our capacity to be creative is dependent on how we use our talents, how much we use our talents. Creativity is like a muscle. You can train to be stronger, and like our bodies benefit from consuming water, our lives benefit from our use of creativity. We need to drink enough water regularly for softer skin, better digestion, increased focus, and better health. We need creativity to reach the impossible and to create a better, happier life. Thank you.
You know, whether you're wearing orange socks or not, just by being here, you are all wearing orange socks. So enjoy that. In my teens, I had a dream that recurred where I was floating in a stream of water, and I would bump up against objects that I had no idea what they were. And every once in a while, a hand would push my head down under the water long enough for me to not be able to breathe, and then release me, and I'd come up gasping for air. And this dream continued through my 20s, and it led me to feel sad and lonely and isolated, and lonely even though I was working in a field where I was around hundreds of people on a regular basis. And eventually I thought, you know, I should do something about this. But back then, doing something about something like that was, you know, 5 or 10 minutes looking into some mysticism thing or some self-help group. 10 minutes was my kind of tolerance level then. And then one time after the hand released me in my dream, a voice whispered, "What are you packing into the stream of life?" I said, "What?" Sounded kind of crazy, and I was a little hurt and embarrassed because I said, "I'm a pretty good guy most of the time." And the voice came right back and said, "Half measures of valor lost nothing." So that kind of stuck with me, and not in a good way. It was like an earworm from a Huey Lewis song. So, but half measures started to become resonant, and I'm thinking, well, you know, kind of living between drowning and breathing is a half measure, or bumping up against objects was a half measure, and not knowing what they were. And then I started seeing half measures everywhere in my life. And I thought, well, maybe I should take some responsibility and do something, maybe longer than 5 or 10 minutes. And the first thing I did was leave the work I was in. And at the time, I met these people that, and Jalen talked about the creativity muscle. There's some folks in Buffalo and elsewhere that have found out about creativity and use it in their lives and their work. And I started hanging out with them. And in my dream, I suddenly found myself out of the water. And I was looking at the water, and suddenly the water was just filled with people. And all their heads were bobbing up and down. And I wondered for days in my dream, who were these people? What are they doing? Where did they come from? And it slowly dawned on me that they were familiar, that I knew who they were. They were my friends. They were my loved ones. They were friends I hadn't met yet. And then I found myself back in the stream, but without the feeling of desperation. And it felt kind of like the lazy river at the amusement park, or going down the water slide, or even when it got to be a feeling of whitewater rapids, I did not have that same feeling of isolation and desperation. And outside of my dreams in the world, I felt like, you know, I need to be the one that is actively bumping up against other people and seeing what they needed, what I might do for them. And then the voice clicked in, packing what I could pack into the stream of life finally had meaning. And it meant, what could I do to help others? And that I should do something to help other people. Then I would be taken care of. So the voice went from an admonishment to wisdom. That's kind of a mysterious gift. So the water, the hand, the drowning, the loneliness, and the isolation were real at the time, but I then later came to understand that they were manifestations of my imagination. And what remained, what was real, was the connections that I had with everyone, with my friends and loved ones and those I had yet to meet. It's pretty exciting. And the meditation that I use, and I have copies of it if you want to see the whole thing. Some other lines that resonate with me are that I should constructively review my day and ask, have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another? And worry, remorse, or morbid reflection will diminish my usefulness to others. You know, with these meditations and the practice of creativity, again, working that muscle of creativity, lets me welcome the unplanned, the unexpected. And the meditation shows me that lingering disappointment takes me out of the stream. And the gifts from creativity, extra gifts, reserve judgment, embrace the unusual, always seek another idea, have led me back to not the stream, but that seeing my life is fluid, that I'm in a state of flow, and that I'm able to do what I can with the help of others to keep my head above water. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jameson. I was really excited to hear Carrie perform at the beginning, and I was really excited about some of the stuff she said about body positivity. That's kind of what I'm going to talk about too. I call this talk gender fluid, gender solid, gender gas. I think that most of us carry a lot of baggage about our bodies, like what we want them to look like, what we feel like they should look like. But our bodies are really changing all the time. We don't look the same as we used to look. We're not even made up of the same cells that we used to be made up of because we're fluid like that. Fluid is a word that I'm gonna keep coming back to. I really think that this is true for everyone, but I also think that it's particularly true for me because I'm transgender. So I've been kind of consciously making a lot of decisions about what kind of changes I want to make to my body. Some trans people, a lot of trans people I think have like this vision in their head of like what they'd like to look like when they're done transitioning. But personally, that's not really the case for me in the same way. I'm non-binary, so that means that I don't really identify as either a man or a woman. And it also means that I'm kind of trying to achieve an androgyny that's a little bit more nebulous than that. But I can tell you some of the things that do feel like wrong about my body. And so because of that, last year, well actually a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to get my top surgery, and then I was on a waiting list for a really long time, to kind of bring my body closer to how I felt like it should be. And after my surgery, I thought I was gonna feel like really great, because that's kind of like the narrative you hear. Like, my body felt wrong in these ways, and so these are the steps I took to fix it, and then at the end, it felt right, and it was really wonderful. And I think that's like a story that people really like to hear because it feels really good, and I totally agree. Like, I like to hear that story too. It means that people are like happy with themselves, which is great. But in actuality, after my surgery, I still felt really bad, and I still kind of felt, my body still felt wrong. And in retrospect, like, of course it did, because I had just had major surgery for the first time in my life. I was in pain, I had drains under my skin. It was like a difficult experience. But it felt really bad because I felt like people were hoping to hear this feel-good story about me feeling great, and I couldn't really give them that story at that point. And particularly because I didn't have this like specific end goal in mind, I started to feel worried that I was like a mistake of some sort. Thankfully, over time, my body healed, and so did the rest of me, and I felt much better, and now it's like pushing a year later, and I feel really happy with my surgery. I'm really glad I did it. But I still don't have that ideal end goal state. And at first that felt kind of bad too, because it made me feel like I was embarking on this transition that was like impossible, like I was shooting an arrow at a moving target. And that got me thinking about moving targets and being in flux and chaos, and about water. Gender is fluid, and that's something that you hear a lot in gender theory. There's this idea that, you know, how we identify can change over the course of our lives. Some people identify as gender fluid, and it changes like even more rapidly for them. Water is a lot like how I perceive my gender, because it also has no ideal end state. No molecule of water stays the same state of matter for its entire existence. It changes from water to ice to vapor and back to water over and over and over again, and none of those changes make it any less what it is. To be authentic to myself, I have to do what feels right with myself and my life and my body. And that is what I'm doing. What I'm doing now feels right now. It's possible that what feels right will change later in the future, and that's okay because I can also change. It's possible that I'll be in this kind of constant flux of transition for my entire life, and that's okay too, I guess. Like, I don't want to prevent myself from feeling happy and fulfilled now because I have fears about how I'm going to feel later. I think in my ideal world, everyone would be authentic to themselves in whatever way feels right, with their orange socks or whatever, and give ourselves permission to be fluid and let that change over time, because just like water, all of these changes don't make us any less who we are. This is Creative Mornings. I think that in a lot of ways what I'm doing with my body is really inherently creative, but I'm also a poet, and so I wanted to end with a poem that I wrote last year just after my surgery. It's called Frayed Wires. I am a work in progress, a medical oddity. Where other people have something, I have nothing. A blank slate where pieces of me should be. My nerve endings like frayed wires lead nowhere, or at least nowhere special. The places they are become special because they were chosen, desperately trying to find somewhere to burrow in and take root. Now all my feelings feel in the wrong places. I too have to find somewhere to burrow in and take root if I want to be anywhere. I am no more impermanent than anyone else, but I have the scars to prove that my impermanence is all mine. If I tore the nerves out once, I can do it again. The places aren't wrong, they're just new. Where other people have something, I have something different. I have a blank canvas, feelings in unique places. I have pain, but it's pain that I earned, and quietness where pain used to be. But mostly I have nothing, and nothing is a good thing to have. Nothing can't be taken away from you, and the only thing that makes things permanent is feeling like they're permanent.